I'd like you guys to get a good understanding of at least 3 types of goals. And the first one is what we call a process goal. And this is where we set and challenge ourselves by a goal which is technique based. So for example, having a straighter or a higher elbow when we're doing our freestyle front crawl technique, say, it involves absolutely no social comparison. So we're not interested in whether performer A is better than performer B. It's whether performer A's elbow action is better than performer A's elbow action last time. That's what a process goal ultimately is. We can describe it as an internal, I don't know if you've done attribution theory studies already, but it's what we call an internal unstable, that's a U and an N by the way, attribution. In other words, this is controllable by the performer. If they change something, they achieve success potentially. Therefore, it's controllable. And actually, as we move to the right here, each of these goals in turn becomes less and less controllable by the individual. These types of goals tend to build confidence because they're in the control of the performer, as long as they're realistic, right? And it's an excellent use of what we call the drive reduction theory. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of drive reduction theory here, but the essence of it is that if we keep setting appropriate goals for our performers, they'll always be motivated because they'll always have something just ahead of them, just in reach, but challenging. Now, performance goals are similar but slightly different. They tend to be related to personal bests. So think about the best ever high jump height you've ever done. It wouldn't be whether you won or lost a competition or whether you were better than someone else. It's your personal best is that height. I know mine, by the way, 161, just in case any of you've probably beaten it, I'd imagine. So we can describe it as a personal standard. A personal standard doesn't relate to anyone else, and you're trying to beat your own standard, which presumably then gives you a higher opportunity to be doing well in comparison. Again, there is no social comparison, so we are not comparing to other people here. Now, the only issue with this is that some personal bests do relate to other people as well. So think about, for example, if you're a tennis player and you want your personal best for the maximum number or the most shots returned on a first serve from your opponent. It depends on how the opponent is serving, right? So we can describe this as largely controllable. So again, you see these goals, this one becomes a little bit more sort of medium term in its nature, but it's still controllable broadly by the performer. But our outcomes, sometimes called our product goals, these are slightly different. They are usually long term. So they're usually long term, but of course it can relate to an individual sort of result. It's all about the end result. We could call it the product, for example. I'm not sure why I'm writing this way. That's his result, believe it or not. It's typically involved with winning or losing. Think about the medal, the league, the championship, etc., etc. It could be to make a final. You know, if you're a swimmer and you're trying to get into national finals for the first time ever, it could be your sort of outcome goal. It could be something like selected for the next team above. So if you're a youth player, it could be, for example, being selected for the first team. That could be your outcome goal. And of course, then you're looking to establish a new one after that. It's not directly controllable. Yes, you can contribute to it. Yes, you can work hard. Yes, you can warm up and cool down every session. Yes, you can listen to your coach. But it's not directly controllable. Why? Because there are external factors which lead to this being the case, not such as the performance of the people. And guys, it's a tough message about sport, but it's statistically unlikely. Okay, or let's say less likely. And what I mean by that is that if someone shows you the correct elbow action in front crawl swimming, you're quite likely to have a good go at that and achieve it, right? But something like winning an outcome goal, winning a 100-meter race, winning a swimming race, statistically these are less typical. So we just need to be aware of that. Now, we use a methodology to go about making goals, and it's called the SMARTER principle. So we're starting off with our S, and you'll see where I'm going with this. It's all about goals being specific. How do we make goals specific? Well, we make them specific to the component of fitness. We do SAQ training to improve our agility, for example. It could be that the goal is specific to a skill, literally what's required in our performance. It could be that it's related to an area of the body. If you're a javelin thrower, it's pretty likely you're going to do chest shoulder workouts. It could be that it relates to an energy system, especially fitness training stuff. That could relate to how long the recovery periods of interval training, for example, might be. And it also is going to relate to the intended outcome of the session, what you want your goals actually are. Intended goals, okay? So there's our S of SMART. Now we're going to go a bit further. We're going to look at the M of SMART, and of course the M of SMART. My computer is really noisy with the fan today. I hope it's not disturbing your ability to listen to this. But goals must be measurable, and they're measurable because this produces quantitative, objective data, okay, terms we've used elsewhere. They're either achieved or failed. So a measurable goal is either achieved or failed. That's it. There's no other outcome. There's no interpretation. And they tend to be things like scores, heights. If we're jumping high jump, for example, it could be times, it could be fitness test results, it could be position in a league. These are measurable outcomes. And there's our M. Let's go a bit further. We're now going to look at our A. This is what that's a bad A. This is what we refer to as achievable. Goals must be achievable. So the language I like to put around this is that goals must be challenging, but realistic. Okay? So you've got to push people and you've got to push yourself, but it's got to be achievable. Otherwise, what's the point? Sometimes we call it within arm's reach or just at the fingertips. That's a nice way of thinking about this. For you to stretch, it's just there, I can just about do it. And also, they've got to be achievable in the time phasing. Okay, so if you're going to, for example, look to improve a fitness test result, it's got to be realistic in, let's say, the 6 weeks that you're going to do it. Now, I've mentioned the old R word there, and I just can't believe that they still put achievable and realistic together, but they want me to teach you that achievable and realistic are two different things, when in reality they're the same thing, aren't they? I'm just going to say here, see achievable, because I don't really see what else I can tell you about that. But the goal must not be unreal. Let's say it must not be unrealistic. Now, the goal must also be T. T is what we call time bound, okay? Now, this is actually in some ways very, very simple, but it's one of the parts of goal setting that people always forget. And what we mean by this is you must be working to a specific time scale. Okay, if you are going to, for example, improve a fitness test result, you have to know when it's going to be done by. And of course, it relates to achievable because the time scale links to how long you've got to go about achieving it. So of course it's related. So there's our SMART. Now we're going to go a touch further and we're going to do SMARTer. When we do the E of SMARTer, the E is what we call that was meant to be this colour. The E is what we call evaluate. You must be able to evaluate whether your process has been successful or not. So the key to this is measure and remeasure. That's what you're expected to do. So let's say fitness test before the program, fitness test at the end of the program, sometimes midterm testing as well. And the R is what we call redo, okay? And what we mean by this is we must repeat goal setting, okay? So goal setting is an ongoing thing. And again, I'm going to relate this to what we call drive reduction theory, okay? So it's an application of drive reduction theory. So it allows us to apply drive reduction theory. And if you recall what I've said previously about drive reduction theory is the idea that you must continually set challenging but realistic goals. Otherwise, people become stale, they become demotivated. We must keep resetting those goals, and that's what maintains motivation over time. That's what we're talking about. Principles of goal setting. Cheers.